Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano and welcome to the Harpin Rugby Preview Show. Joining me today to look ahead to Leinster's first interprovincial of this young season is someone earning their 19th cap on the pod. A warm welcome to Mr. Mark Jackson.
Afternoon, Jeff. How are you?
Hi, very good to have you back. Just before we start looking at the lineups, Mark, the first emerging Ireland team was also named today. They played the Griquas at lunchtime on Friday. Any quick thoughts?
Yeah, it's an interesting side. Emerging Ireland is obviously would cover most of the players there. I think there's actually a couple of players maybe on Last Chance Saloon, looking at Shane Daly and probably Max Deegan, who've been around starting provincial lineups for a while and probably haven't kicked on like people would expect. So it's a good opportunity for those sort of slightly more mature players to show leadership skills and maybe put a marker down for their provinces as well as for Ireland. But definitely you're looking at Jamie Osborne at 13, Jack Crowley at 10 for me would be the guys in the backs that I'd be really interested to see how they go. Obviously, Stuart Moore's had a good start to the season along with Balakoon for Ulster. And then up front, I'd like to see Josh Wycherley kick on a little bit. I think he has some potential. And also the second row is where I see a big future for both those players, Joe McCarthy and Thomas Ahern. I would expect to have many caps down through the years. Joe McCarthy particularly might slip into that Ireland squad for the World Cup. I can't see too many of that squad breaking into it, but I think McCarthy of the starting lineup has the potential to do it. Scott Penny at this level hasn't really, he's been a stalwart for Leinster as such, but see how he will kick on as well. I think it's an interesting lineup. As I said, it's not just an emergency Ireland. I think a couple of guys probably are maybe Last Chance Saloon. Who knows?
Yep. Yeah, it's a lot was said about the tour when it was first announced, the way it cuts into the season. But as always, when the matches are actually being played and you see the selections, and it's always interesting to watch. And the game, it's an awkward time. This one, it's at 12:45 lunchtime on Friday, and but it is streaming on the Irish Rugby website if anyone wants to catch that. Okay, so we'll move on to the main event. For us, it's this week's feature Harpin match. It's Ulster v Leinster. It's in round 3 of the 22-23 BKT United Rugby Championship, and it's taking place at the Kingspan Stadium, Belfast, on Friday, September 30th, kicking off at 7:35 p.m. Being shown on TV, it's on BBC 2 Northern Ireland, RTE2, Premier Sports 1, Super Sport, Delivery Plus, possibly the Cooking Channel as well, you never know. But it's definitely also streaming on urc.tv, where you'll get all the season's matches for just $6.99 a month. Leinster named their matchday squad at lunchtime on Thursday, so why don't we crack on harping about it with the back line. Leinster's backs are 15, fullback Jimmy O'Brien. The wings are Dave Carney and Jordan Larmour. Centers, Robbie Henshaw and Gary Ringrose, who's the captain. And the halfbacks are Luke McGrath and Ross Byrne.
Yeah, that's a really strong back line to start off with. The player that stands out for me, especially from last week and trying to kick on, is Jimmy O'Brien. I think with Hugo Keenan's mystery injuries at the moment, we don't know too much about them. I think Jimmy O'Brien may be there for a while. It'll also be interesting to see what happens if there is actually an injury for the backline, especially out wide. I think this could be a case where we might see Gary Ringrose cover wing and probably Jordan Larmour cover fullback if there's any potential injuries there. But yeah, pretty settled, pretty experienced lineup, and looking forward to see how that backline go.
Definitely. And now we move into the pack. Forwards, we've got the front row, Andrew Porter, Dan Sheehan, and Michael Alatoa. The second row, Ross Maloney and Jason Jenkins. The back row, Ryan Baird, Josh van der Fleer, and Jack Conan.
Really excited to see Ryan Baird again at 6. I still think that's his position going forward. We've tried him in the second row. He's covered there. The interesting position there for me actually as well is probably tight head prop. You know, Alatoa has been really solid. His backup then Vak Abeladze, you know, hasn't really kicked on maybe as we hoped he would. So I'd expect a good 60-65 minutes out of Alatoa. Dan Sheehan has started the season like a house on fire. A bit surprised to see him start again. I thought they might get more game time for Kelleher there. Listen, there's Kelleher's world class, Sheehan's world class. We're in a very, very nice situation there. I'd also like to see Andrew Porter have a go at Tom O'Toole. Tom O'Toole's an excellent player around the park, but I think Andrew Porter needs to kick on himself with his scrummaging technique. For me, he had a little bit of problems with his bindings last week and got folded in a little bit. So it's a very strong pack again, and good to see Conan get a start as well at 8.
Absolutely. Okay, so now we move on to the Leinster bench. First, I want to just bring in a comment from Tom Coleman, who'll be helping us wrap up the game on Sunday evening. He says, it's the bench that contains Ryan, Connors, Kelleher, Natai, and Sexton that will probably have Ulster concerned. We owe them a bit from last year, and Cullen has picked a 23 that's looking to regain the bragging rights and hopefully get a third win from 3. So this is the bench. It's 16, Ronan Kelleher, 17, Ed Byrne, then Abdeladze at 18, then Ryan at 19, Will Connors 20, then Nick McCarthy, Johnny Sexton, and Charlie Natai rounding out the backs.
Yeah, that's a very, very experienced pack. As I said, apart from maybe Abdeladze, everybody there would be looking to get some good game time, especially Kelleher. I thought Ed Burns had a really good start to the season as well. And if Ulster are making yards, no better man than Will Connors to come on and chop a few trees down there. It's almost like for like a little bit with Nick McCarthy and Luke McGrath. There's not too much difference there. Obviously, Johnny will be looking to get some game time as well. And then, Charlie Natai's had a bit of a slowish start to his Leinster career. But the game I saw Quins and the first outing for him, he was a little bit quiet, probably trying a little bit too hard. So we'll hopefully see after a couple more weeks training if he's settled into sort of Leinster systems. But when we get onto the Ulster team in a second, I think that the big difference between both sides is the bench and the impact that they can all have off it.
Absolutely. And when I think about Will Connors in particular, I mean, obviously he has the quality to start for Leinster and Ireland, but it's just the thought of a well-drilled Leinster defence going for 50, 60 minutes, holding them out and then just starting to get used to that, our defensive structure. And then you've got him coming on at 55 minutes, like you say, chopping down trees and hitting people right at the ankles and stuff. And then it's a whole new thing for them to have to deal with. It's a really good combination there.
He works unbelievably well. Like when you pick a back row, you're looking for balance, but Connors does stand out in terms of how he works with the centres. I think McCluskey's obviously had a really good start to the season, and he's getting across the gain line and getting Ulster across the gain line, looking for offloads and quick ruck ball. But it's a different kettle of fish when you're going up against the starting Leinster back line and then back row along with the centres. Henshaw's just a block in midfield, and I think Connors, Van der Fleer, Conan, they work really well in that middle bit of the park, both as a back row but also with their centres. And it's, for me, the difference between the two teams, both teams can attack, both teams can score tries. Ulster 55-38, I think it was against the Scarlets. Yeah, attack is not their issue. It hasn't been their issue for a while. It's how they hold out. And I think Leinster's defence is just that little bit stingier. And I think the bookies have Leinster gone from, as you said, Ulster initially by a point to now Leinster by 3 or 4. And I think that's probably a fair reflection.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, let's have a quick look at the opposition now. I won't read out the whole team. If you're watching on YouTube, hopefully my editing team will have it coming across the bottom of the screen there. But what do you make of their 23?
It's a very good back five in their pack. I'm a big fan of what Kieran Treadwell, he's an ex-exile, one of the lads we brought through the system, and he's come on leaps and bounds, especially in the last year, and they do like him at Ireland level. I know we haven't seen Ian Henderson yet, I think he's probably picked a couple of niggles. Alan O'Connor's a cracking player. He's almost a bit like Ross Maloney in what he brings. He's a bit of steel there. I do like the two Rays in the back row, but I just think Leinster have that little bit more quality in that back row positions. Nick Timoney at 8. I prefer to see Timoney at 7 myself. I'm not too sure how much go forward the Ulster pack will give them. They'll be looking a hell of a lot to McCluskey and Marshall to get them across the gain line. Interesting to see Stockdale back again. He's come back from injuries. Him and Sexton, very, very exciting going forward. I just think defensively Ulster still have 1 or 2 holes to fill that Leinster hopefully will exploit. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier, their bench wouldn't frighten me too much coming off in terms of impact. I think Marty Moore actually has had a bit of a resurgence. Last season I thought he played quite well, so he might bring a bit off the bench to the tight head, different sort of player to Tom O'Toole. Tom O'Toole's got some great skills around the park, but he still needs to improve his scrummaging. So I'd like to see Leinster actually attack them at the scrum, see if they could have a go with them there. And at the line out, I think Leinster will fancy their chances as well.
Yep. We've had a couple of Ulster fans on the pod already this season. We had Peter Lockhart, the Red Hand pod, and Ian Frizzell was on during the week. And they were saying about, you're mentioning Sexton there, and you say defensively, they're saying that that's something that he needs to work on. He's got loads of gas. He's got, he can definitely burn it up if they find space for him. But there's a few things, there are a few issues he needs to work on there. But to what extent do you think the home advantage is going to help Ulster, that 16th man factor?
I think for Ulster to win this game, for me, I think they've got to be ahead around 50-55 minute mark, because that's when a spate of substitutions will probably happen. Usually see front row changes from 5 changes around that sort of time. I just think Leinster's bench may be the difference. I think for Ulster to win, they'd want to be a score or two ahead come that 50-60 minutes mark, because I think the last 20-30 minutes with the Leinster bench could be the difference in the end.
Yep. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the officials. The referee is Andrew Brace. The assistants are Owen Cross and Andrew Cole, and the TMO Brian McNeese. They're all from the RFU. What do you make of Brace?
These teams can never moan about referees because they see them 5-6 times a year. You have to adapt to the referees. Brace does wind people up at times a little bit, but he's consistent. He may not be consistently brilliant, but he's consistent. So, when they study, teams are so professional these days, they're going to understand the opposition's habits and tendencies, but they do the exact same thing with the referees. I think we're buying into referees having too much influence on the game of rugby at the moment, and we just need to put up, shut up, and just deal with it, to be honest with you.
Here. Okay, so now it's head on the block time. We're going to move on to predictions. We're going to look at just how the Irish teams are doing this weekend. Ulster versus Leinster. The bookie, like you say, the bookies before the teams were named had Ulster by a point. They couldn't really separate them. But then after the teams were named, they tilted a little towards Leinster by 3. What do you say?
I'd probably go Leinster by 5-6, to be honest with you. Maybe just a little bit more experience to come off the bench, especially hopefully Sexton might just guide the guys home and put them in the right positions. Ulster have always caused Leinster trouble over the last few years, so this is no guaranteed win. And Friday night in Ravenhill is a great occasion always, and I think Ulster would be bang up for it. They've had a good start to the season. I just think Leinster's defence and Ulster's a little bit more porous defence will cause Leinster to come home by a try maybe.
Yep. Yeah, it's really too close to call. I just went for Leinster by 2, just because, like you say, looking at the teams, you're justified because it is such a strong bench. But the home factor could still keep it close towards the end, but there might be a kick, maybe a Sexton penalty, maybe a drop goal. I don't know, something at the end just to win it. So it'll definitely be tight, and it'll be like the bounce of the ball in it during the game. Okay, well, let's look at the other Irish provinces. Connacht have had a trouble start to the season, as we all know, and it doesn't get any easier schedule-wise. They're still out in South Africa, and they play the Bulls. What do you have that?
I see the Bulls winning that fairly handily, to be honest with you. I think after Bundiaki's red card, he probably would have started this week. So there might be a little bit discombobulated with guys coming in and out of the team. I think Connacht lack a bit of power. Their carrying is a worry for me. And I know their coach, their forwards coach, was going that it's not all about size, but it certainly does help down in the high veld, especially against a big, aggressive Blue Bulls pack who handled the Leinster pack not easily, but they handled them last year. I think it's a tough ask for Connacht early on in the season. I think the results will pick up when a couple of guys come back from the Emerging Ireland Tour and they get a couple of guys back from injury, but I'll probably see the Blue Bulls 15 points in that one probably.
That's exactly what I had, 15 points as well. I'm not just agreeing with you, whatever you say, but I actually have it written down here, Bulls by 15, so we agree on that. And Munster against Zebra.
This is a really interesting one for me. There's a lot of negative press around Munster at the moment, especially from sort of the RTE side of things, that they seem to be getting down on them. And yeah, it's going to take a while, even though, Rowntree's been there for a couple of years. He may have some slightly different techniques and ways of playing the game to Van Grant, so I wouldn't be pushing the panic buttons just yet, but this is a good opportunity for Munster to have a better opportunity to get a win under their belt and get a few points on the board. Zebra, really impressed me when they played Leinster. This is not going to be a gimme. This is not like 5 or 6 years ago when you'd expect Munster to romp home by 20, 25 points. I'd say Munster will take any win at this moment in time. I've probably got Munster by about 6 to 8 points, I'd say, on that one.
Very good.
I think
Yeah, the bookies have them 32 at the moment, which I thought was a bit much. And I've said 23 because I think they really do need a response. It's almost I make predictions like that just almost to challenge them because we need to see them coming out of what's going wrong. But like you say, Zebra, I mean, they've 4 points from the first 2 matches, and they've earned every one of them, and possibly could have had more. And so we'll see how they travel on Saturday as well. That's good. That's definitely going to be an interesting one. Right. Well, we're gonna leave it there. Many thanks to Mark for joining me today. Be sure to enjoy the match wherever you are. And at the full-time whistle, why not head to Harpin and Rugby Facebook page and leave your thoughts. We'll share them on our Rap Pod this Sunday evening. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.